My beloved child. There are moments when the world feels quiet enough for subtle things to be noticed. Not because anything has changed, and not because something is about to happen, but because attention has softened. In that softness, there can be a sense of presence that does not announce itself. It does not ask to be understood or named. It simply exists, steady and unhurried, like a familiar shape in a room you have entered many times before. A father's unseen presence is often like that. It is not always defined by words or gestures. Sometimes it is felt as steadiness rather than action, as continuity rather than direction. It can exist without explanation, without expectation. It can be sensed in the way space feels held together, in the way silence does not feel empty, in the way ordinary moments seem quietly supported. This kind of presence does not compete with noise. It does not try to stand out. It remains constant whether it is noticed or not. There is no requirement to respond to it, no obligation to recognize it. It does not depend on belief or interpretation. It is simply there, like a background rhythm that does not demand attention yet gives structure to what is happening now. Quiet care often moves in this way. It does not rush in to fix or adjust. It does not insist on improvement or resolution. It rests alongside what already exists. It allows moments to unfold at their own pace. It acknowledges complexity without trying to simplify it. It offers steadiness without explanation. In this moment, nothing needs to be clarified. Nothing needs to be resolved. The present does not require justification. The act of being here, aware of the calm between thoughts, is already enough. Care does not always arrive as comfort. Sometimes it arrives as space. Sometimes it arrives as patience. Sometimes it arrives as the absence of pressure. A father's care, when unseen, often takes the shape of reliability rather than reassurance. It is not loud encouragement or dramatic protection. It is the quiet sense that something is holding the edges steady, even when attention drifts elsewhere. It can be present in routine, in repetition, in the ordinary flow of time that continues without interruption. There is no need to measure this presence. It cannot be quantified or proven. It does not depend on memory being clear or emotions being settled. It exists independently of understanding. It does not require gratitude or acknowledgement. It does not withdraw when unnoticed. It does not change its nature based on response. Sometimes this presence is felt most clearly in pauses. In the space between one thought and the next. In the moment before a word forms. In the gentle stillness that appears when nothing is being asked of you. In those moments, there can be a sense of being accompanied without being directed. Care that is quiet does not push against experience. It does not label emotions or try to rearrange them. It allows feelings to exist without defining them. It recognizes that not every experience needs a name. It understands that rest can occur even when understanding is incomplete. A father's unseen care often expresses itself as permission to exist without performance. There is no requirement to be better, calmer, stronger, or clearer. There is no expectation to arrive at a particular state. The present moment is sufficient as it is. Care rests in that sufficiency. In this space, time does not feel urgent. It does not press forward or pull backward. It simply moves as it moves. The presence that accompanies it does not interfere. It does not hurry it along. It does not resist it. It remains steady as moments pass through. There can be comfort in knowing that care does not depend on constant attention. It does not fade when thoughts wander. It does not weaken when focus shifts. It does not require maintenance. It exists beyond effort. A father's presence, when quiet, can feel like a stable horizon. Not something to move toward, and not something that promises arrival, but something that remains consistent regardless of where you stand. It provides orientation without instruction. It offers steadiness without demand. This presence does not explain itself. It does not justify its existence. It does not need to be interpreted correctly. It does not require agreement. It simply continues to be present, regardless of how it is perceived. There are times when this care is felt as gentleness in the body. Not as a sensation that demands attention, but as an absence of tension. A sense that nothing is being pushed or pulled. A moment where the weight of expectation seems lighter, not because it has disappeared, but because it is not being emphasized. Quiet care does not erase difficulty. It does not remove complexity. It does not replace uncertainty with certainty. Instead, it provides a steady background against which all of that can exist without becoming overwhelming. It does not change the landscape. It offers a place to stand within it. A father's unseen presence can be compared to the way light fills a room without drawing attention to itself. It does not announce its arrival. It does not ask to be noticed. It simply makes space usable. It allows things to be seen without insisting on focus. In this moment, nothing is required of you. There is no expectation to feel a certain way. There is no standard to meet. The quiet care that exists here does not evaluate. It does not compare. It does not measure worth. This presence does not depend on past events. It does not rely on future outcomes. It exists now, in the present, without reference to what came before or what might come after. It is not a response to circumstances. It is not a reward. It is simply present. Sometimes care is most evident when nothing is happening. When there is no story unfolding, no resolution approaching, no lesson being learned. In those moments, the absence of narrative can feel strangely supportive. As if nothing needs to be added. A father's care, when quiet, often appears as patience that does not run out. Not patience that waits for improvement, but patience that has no agenda. It does not anticipate change. It does not require progress. It remains open without expectation. This kind of care does not correct or instruct. It does not offer guidance or advice. It does not suggest alternatives. It respects the complexity of experience without trying to organize it. There is a steadiness here that does not fluctuate with mood. It does not become stronger when things feel calm or weaker when things feel unsettled. It remains consistent, like a deep current beneath surface movement. In the presence of this care, thoughts can come and go without being managed. Emotions can exist without being shaped. Silence can be allowed without being filled. Nothing needs to be solved. A father's unseen presence does not insist on closeness. It does not demand intimacy. It does not require connection to be acknowledged. It allows distance and proximity to exist without judgment. Sometimes this care is felt as a simple sense of being held within a wider context. Not held in a physical sense, and not held in a way that restricts movement, but held as part of something stable. Something that does not collapse when attention shifts. This presence does not interrupt. It does not intervene. It does not impose meaning. It allows meaning to arise or not arise, without concern. In this space, there is room for rest that does not depend on sleep or stillness. It is a rest that exists alongside activity. A rest that does not require withdrawal. A rest that does not need to be earned. Quiet care does not require acknowledgement. It does not diminish when ignored. It does not grow when noticed. It remains unchanged by recognition or absence of it. A father's presence, when unseen, can feel like an unspoken agreement that nothing needs to be proven. That existence itself is not conditional. That value is not tied to outcome. This care does not define identity. It does not assign roles. It does not label experience. It allows space for ambiguity. It allows space for not knowing. There is a sense of balance here that does not rely on control. It is not the balance of keeping everything aligned, but the balance of allowing things to rest where they are. In this moment, awareness can simply notice what is already present. The sound of quiet. The feeling of stillness between movements. The absence of demand. These are not signs of something else. They are complete in themselves. A father's unseen care does not arrive with explanation. It does not come with context or background. It does not ask to be understood historically or emotionally. It exists outside of narrative. Sometimes care is felt most clearly when expectations soften. When the need for interpretation fades. When experience is allowed to be what it is without commentary. This presence does not compete with other influences. It does not replace them or override them. It coexists. It does not seek dominance. It does not require priority. Quiet care often shows itself as tolerance for complexity. It does not simplify what is complicated. It does not reduce what is layered. It allows multiple states to exist at once without conflict. A father's presence, when steady, does not fluctuate with circumstance. It is not amplified by success or diminished by difficulty. It remains even, not because it is indifferent, but because it is not reactive. This care does not attempt to manage experience. It does not adjust emotions. It does not steer thoughts. It allows internal movement without interference. There can be reassurance in the absence of urgency. In the sense that nothing is being pushed forward. That nothing is falling behind. That time is allowed to be what it is. A father's unseen care does not announce itself as protection. It does not promise safety. It does not eliminate uncertainty. It simply remains present within uncertainty. In this presence, there is no expectation of resolution. No sense that something needs to conclude. The moment is allowed to remain open-ended. Quiet care does not rely on language. It does not require words. It does not depend on conversation. It exists beyond expression. Sometimes it feels like a gentle boundary around experience. Not a barrier, but a container. Something that allows things to exist without spilling into overwhelm. This presence does not judge reactions. It does not categorize feelings. It does not analyze responses. It remains neutral and steady. A father's care, when quiet, often feels like permission for things to be unfinished. For questions to remain unanswered. For understanding to remain partial. There is no demand here to reach insight. No pressure to arrive at clarity. Awareness itself is enough. This care does not ask for trust. It does not request belief. It does not require agreement. It exists regardless. In the stillness of this moment, there is space for noticing without interpreting, for sensing without naming, for being without becoming. A father's unseen presence does not withdraw when attention turns elsewhere. It does not diminish when focus shifts outward. It remains constant. Quiet care does not require consistency of feeling. It does not depend on calm or positivity. It remains even when emotions are mixed or undefined. This presence does not interrupt thought. It does not stop internal dialogue. It simply exists alongside it, unaffected. There is a subtle reassurance in knowing that care does not depend on effort. That nothing needs to be done to maintain it. That it is not fragile. A father's care, when unseen, does not seek recognition. It does not need acknowledgement to exist. It does not require validation. In this space, there is room for rest that does not involve retreat. A rest that exists within awareness. A rest that does not require explanation. Quiet care does not attempt to shape experience into meaning. It allows meaning to arise or not arise naturally. This presence does not offer answers. It does not resolve questions. It allows questions to remain without tension. A father's unseen presence does not define direction. It does not indicate where to go. It simply remains present wherever you are. There is balance here that does not depend on symmetry. A balance that exists within movement and stillness equally. This care does not react to thoughts. It does not follow them. It does not resist them. It remains steady as they pass. In the quiet of this moment, there is nothing missing. Not because everything is complete, but because nothing is being measured. A father's care, when quiet, does not impose narrative. It does not frame experience as progress or setback. It allows experience to be neutral. This presence does not diminish when unnoticed. It does not strengthen when acknowledged. It remains unchanged. There is a gentle steadiness here that does not seek to be felt strongly. It does not aim to be convincing. It simply exists. Quiet care does not rely on certainty. It does not require clarity. It does not depend on understanding. A father's unseen presence does not interrupt silence. It coexists with it. In this moment, awareness can rest without needing to arrive anywhere. The present is sufficient as it is. This care does not create expectation. It does not anticipate outcome. It does not suggest direction. There is room here for experience to remain open. For reflection to unfold without conclusion. A father's care, when unseen, is not something to hold on to. It does not require grasping. It remains without effort. Quiet care does not demand engagement. It does not require participation. It exists regardless. In this space, nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be understood. Nothing needs to be achieved. The presence that is here remains gentle, steady, and unobtrusive, allowing the moment to remain exactly as it is. There is a quiet moment that sometimes appears without effort, when attention settles and the pace of inner movement softens on its own. It is not something created, and it does not arrive as a result of intention. It simply becomes noticeable, like a pause that was already there, waiting to be seen. In that pause, experience can feel less divided. Thoughts still arise, sounds still exist, and awareness remains present, but nothing is pulling too tightly in any direction. There is a sense of being held within the moment itself, without pressure to define it or move beyond it. This kind of stillness does not mean that everything is calm or resolved. It does not imply clarity or ease. It simply allows what is present to remain present, without being rearranged. There is a subtle relief in not needing to interpret what is happening or assign meaning to it. Care, when it remains in the background, often feels like this. It does not come forward to take control. It does not step in to explain or adjust. It stays close enough to be felt, yet far enough not to intrude. It respects the natural rhythm of experience. There can be comfort in realizing that support does not always arrive as reassurance. Sometimes it arrives as neutrality. Sometimes it arrives as space. Sometimes it arrives as the absence of commentary. These forms of care can be easy to overlook because they do not demand attention. In moments like these, awareness may notice how much energy is usually spent anticipating, evaluating, or responding. When those movements soften, even briefly, there can be a sense of rest that does not depend on circumstances changing. It is a rest that exists alongside whatever is already there. This rest is not a destination. It is not something achieved. It does not replace activity or thought. It simply coexists, offering a wider frame in which everything else can occur. There is something steady about care that does not seek to influence outcomes. It does not lean toward hope or away from uncertainty. It remains even, allowing experience to unfold without interference. That steadiness can feel grounding, not because it promises anything, but because it does not fluctuate. At times, this presence is felt as a quiet continuity. One moment flows into the next without sharp edges. Even when attention shifts, there is a sense that nothing essential has been lost. The background remains consistent. This kind of care does not need to be personalized. It does not depend on relationship or identity. It is not attached to story or memory. It can be felt without being explained. As awareness lingers here, it may become clear how rarely experience is allowed to be neutral. So often, moments are framed as better or worse, useful or unimportant. Quiet care does not participate in that framing. It allows neutrality to exist without judgment. There is a gentleness in not being evaluated. In not being measured against an expectation. In not being asked to improve or resolve. This gentleness does not come from approval or disapproval. It comes from the absence of comparison. Care that is subtle often supports by not interfering. It allows thoughts to move naturally. It allows emotions to shift without being directed. It allows silence to remain unfilled. In this space, there is no requirement to arrive at insight. Understanding may appear, or it may not. Either way, nothing is missing. The moment is complete in its own way. Sometimes the sense of being quietly supported shows up as stability in the body. Not as relaxation that needs to be maintained, but as the absence of urgency. A feeling that nothing needs to be braced against. This stability does not mean that challenges are gone or that tension never appears. It simply means that there is something steady beneath movement. Something that does not react. Care that remains unseen does not announce its presence. It does not try to be convincing. It does not require belief. It remains whether it is noticed or not. As attention stays here, the idea of progress can soften. There is no sense of moving forward or backward. Experience is allowed to be exactly where it is, without being placed on a timeline. This can feel unfamiliar, especially in a world that often emphasizes momentum. Yet there is a quiet reassurance in realizing that nothing is falling behind when nothing is being measured. There is also space here for ambiguity. Not knowing does not need to be resolved. Questions do not need to lead anywhere. Uncertainty does not require correction. Care that is steady does not seek certainty. It does not avoid uncertainty. It remains present within both, unchanged. In this openness, awareness can notice how much effort is usually spent trying to hold things together. When that effort eases, even slightly, there can be a sense of being supported by something larger than effort itself. This support is not directional. It does not point toward improvement or away from difficulty. It simply holds the space in which both can exist. There is no instruction here. No suggestion of what should happen next. The moment is allowed to remain open-ended. Sometimes this openness feels like a wide field rather than a narrow path. There is room to stand anywhere without needing to move toward a particular point. Care that does not impose direction can feel respectful. It trusts experience to unfold without management. It does not intervene unless needed, and often, it does not intervene at all. In this space, awareness may notice how often internal dialogue tries to guide or correct. When that dialogue quiets, there can be a sense of ease that does not come from answers, but from the absence of pressure. This ease is not excitement. It is not relief after struggle. It is quieter than that. It is simply the feeling of nothing being demanded. Care that is quiet does not disappear during distraction. It does not weaken when attention wanders. It remains steady regardless of focus. There can be reassurance in knowing that support does not require vigilance. It does not need to be maintained. It does not depend on staying aware of it. In moments of stillness, it may become clear how much experience is usually shaped by expectation. When expectation softens, experience can feel more spacious, less constrained. This spaciousness does not eliminate detail. It allows detail to exist without crowding. Thoughts, sensations, and sounds can come and go without competing. Care that allows this kind of space does not seek to optimize experience. It does not aim to make things better or worse. It simply allows. As the moment continues, there is no need to summarize or conclude. Nothing needs to be wrapped up. The openness remains. This care does not rely on continuity of attention. Even if awareness shifts outward again, the background steadiness remains unchanged. There is something reassuring about care that does not depend on engagement. It does not require response. It does not expect acknowledgement. In this space, reflection can happen naturally, without being guided. Thoughts may arise, but they do not need to lead anywhere. Care that remains quiet respects the intelligence of experience itself. It does not override it. It does not compete with it. Sometimes this presence is felt as a gentle neutrality. Not positive, not negative. Simply present. This neutrality can feel supportive because it does not add weight. It does not amplify emotion. It does not intensify meaning. In moments like these, there is room for experience to breathe. Nothing is compressed. Nothing is expanded unnecessarily. Care that is steady does not fluctuate with mood. It does not become stronger when things feel calm or weaker when things feel unsettled. It remains even. This evenness can feel grounding. Not because it anchors to a belief, but because it does not move with every shift. As awareness lingers, it may notice how the body responds to the absence of urgency. There may be subtle changes, or there may be none at all. Either way, nothing needs to be noticed. Care that does not demand awareness allows experience to unfold naturally. There is no need to monitor or adjust. In this openness, there is permission for experience to be incomplete. For moments to end without resolution. For thoughts to fade without conclusion. This permission does not come from instruction. It arises from the absence of constraint. Care that remains unseen often feels like trust. Not trust in an outcome, but trust in the present moment to be what it is. This trust does not eliminate uncertainty. It coexists with it. In the quiet continuity of this moment, there is no requirement to name what is happening. Language is optional. Silence is sufficient. Care that does not insist on language allows experience to remain direct, unfiltered by interpretation. As the moment continues, awareness may drift, and that is not a problem. Nothing is lost when attention shifts. This steadiness does not depend on staying here. It remains even when awareness moves elsewhere. There is something gentle about care that does not cling. It does not hold tightly. It does not require proximity. In this space, there is no sense of being watched or evaluated. There is simply presence. Care that does not observe does not judge. It does not categorize. It does not measure. This absence of judgment can feel like relief. Not because something has been forgiven or corrected, but because nothing is being assessed. As the moment unfolds, there is room for awareness to simply exist, without needing to justify itself. Care that remains quiet does not attempt to shape identity. It does not define who you are. It allows identity to remain fluid or undefined. In this openness, there is no need to hold on to the moment. It does not need to be preserved. It can pass naturally. This passing does not imply loss. Nothing essential is taken away. Care that does not cling allows moments to come and go without attachment.
दिखता जा रहा बेटा जैसे कि ट्रिपल एक्स टैक्सी गंदी संदी वीडियो मंगा के जो देखी जा रही है इसको मंगाना बंद करेगा या नहीं करेगा?
कहाँ से बोल रहे हैं आप? एक सेकंड रुकिए।
कहाँ से बोल रहा हूँ वो
हाँ हाँ आप बोलिए बोलिए बोलिए।
यूपी उत्तर प्रदेश सीबीआई क्राइम ब्रांच से बात कर रहा हूँ साली।
जी बोलिए आगे।
ये बता इसको मंगाना बंद करेगा या नहीं करेगा?
कहाँ से बोल रहे हैं आप और कौन? आपके पास क्या सबूत है कि सर्च कर रहा हूँ? आप नहीं, आप जहाँ से बोल रहे हैं आप ये बताइए। मैं आ रहा हूँ, मेरे फोन में अगर कुछ सर्च हुआ होगा आप अपनी लीगल कार्रवाई करिएगा। चिल्लाइए मत, औकात में बात करिए अपनी। पहली बात तो ये समझिए, आपका इतना